Hello folks, and welcome back. In this clip you're going to be looking into the skeletal system. And it is part of anatomy and physiology. So the skeletal system consists of several bones and is the body's toughest material. The human body has around about 206 bones, and each is attached to its neighbor by connective tissue that allows the skeleton to provide the whole body with a frame of structure. The skeleton also provides the most vulnerable internal organs with a means of protection and a point of attachment for the muscles. Being familiar with the skeletal structure is very important for therapists, as it also provides landmarks for muscle location. Because we fire cupping will be dealing with musculoskeletal issues, we need to locate the muscle. So it's a very good way to learn about how to locate these muscles if you are familiar with the skeletal system. So on page 4, you're going to get yourself a diagram which will look like this. Okay, so my advice to you guys would be to learn all the words. So you got the tibia, fibula, patella, femur, phalanges, tarsals, skull. Learn these words, and more familiar you are with the scientific terminology, you will sound more professional with your clients, and it is a great way to hopefully understand the anatomy and physiology as you progress in your traditional Chinese medicine in terms of fire cupping. So if we look into the main functions of the human skeleton, it provides support. So the skeleton carries an entire body weight and gives us the structural ability to stand up. Shape, body bones gives us our shape, the skull and limbs, for example. It provides protection. So the skeleton surrounds our vital organs like the rib cage around the heart and protects them. Attachment. The bones provide the muscles and ligaments with an attachment point. Working with the bones, muscles and ligaments allows us through leverage to articulate the body. Blood formation. Red blood cells from inside the bones of the on the marrow. So if you did not know that our bones actually produce blood in order to circulate around the body, so it is a great way to tell your clients if they were to do something like hijama cupping, and some people are worried about, oh, where's my blood going and stuff. Then that's not something to worry about, because your bones, as long as you don't have any medical conditions preventing you from producing new fresh blood, oxygenated blood that will be supplied around the body, there is no need to worry about that. Furthermore, if we look into page 5, the skull rests on the vertebral column's upper end and weighs about 11 pounds. It's made up of 22 bones. There are 8 main bones that make up the cranium and 14 that make up the skeleton's facial structure. The cranium encloses and provides crucial brain protection, as well as providing a surface attachment for the different skull muscles. So you've got a diagram here of how the cranium looks like. Learn the different words. So you got parietal bone, temporal line, frontal bone. Obviously we're not going to be doing fire cupping on the skull, but it's a good idea to learn it. It might be useful if you were to do some other courses as well. But yeah, this is the main nitty-gritty of it. So if you learn the bone structure, what will happen is you would be able to know how that bone is connected to the muscles and where the muscles are located. So it will be very easy. It provides you a mind map of how to locate your muscles, because in fire cupping we are going to be dealing with the muscles. We will try to avoid the bones as much as possible, because the toxic buildup will be in the muscles themselves. So that is what we are trying to target. Another thing is learn about the spine. The spine consists of 33 bones of irregular shape called the vertebrae. So each vertebrae has a hole in the center running through the spinal cord. The spinal cord consists of 5 separate sections. So you got this cervical vertebrae, and then you have the thoracic vertebrae, then you have the lumbar vertebrae, sacrum vertebrae, and then the coccyx vertebrae. So the cervical vertebrae is the top of the spine and the neck. So that's the part that's connected to the top of your spine and neck. The 12 thoracic vertebrae from below the shoulder to the last rib. 5 lumbar vertebrae, lower back, okay, and the sacrum vertebrae is on the bottom bone. So coccyx vertebrae, the end of the tailbone. So you could easily get a spinal cord diagram. Go into Google Images, you will find a spinal cord diagram. Learn the different sections of the spinal cord. In that way, you'll be know about what is C1, C2, T1, T2, and all the rest of it. So it's very easy, and it's something that I would advise that people to learn. It is wonderful to know where the spinal cord is. So when you are doing your cupping therapy, you do not go over the spinal cord to prevent any injuries. It's always better to do it around different parts, but some people do prefer it on the spine, but I would recommend that it's just best to do it around the muscle areas. Bones have different shapes according to their functions. Long bones, so these are structurally tubular, including tibia, fibula, femur, and humerus. They're hollow, have a marrow-filled medulla cavity. Then you have the short bones. These are similar to long bones in structure, but without a cavity. They are solid. The fingers and toe bones are short bones. So then we have different size bones in the body, so learn those as well. Then we got the flat bones. These consist of 2 layers of compact bone with an average of cancellous or spongy bone sandwiched between them. The skull are flat bones. Okay, so that's an example. You have irregular bones. So the ribs, these are bones that are irregular in shape and are consistent with other bone types. The vertebrae are bones that are irregular. And then you got the cartilage, is a dense connective tissue that is harder than tendon but not stronger than bone. It is found in many parts of the body, including the bones. Articular surface, rib cage, ear, nose, bronchial tubes, and intervertebral discs. So these are some of the cartilages. Ossification is the bone formation process in which connective tissue such as cartilage is formed into bone or tissue similar to bone. The skeleton is made entirely of cartilage. So when the body is first formed and this begins to turn a few weeks, like say for example in 20 years, the process will be completed. After this time, the body may be further ossified after injury or trauma. So ossification kind of stops in when we reach around the 20s. It's like it came to this end of the life cycle, and then the only time ossification would happen is through injury or trauma. Other things you should be learning is the muscular system. So the body has around 640 muscles, okay? Some of them are superficially lying and others are deep muscles that are layered beneath them. Knowing the names, shapes, and locations of major muscles and muscle groups is useful as therapists work with them during the delivery of a fire cupping session. Okay, so that is the main nitty-gritty. So you want to come to the functions of the muscles. You want to learn the muscles, get yourself a diagram. You can get one from eBay, Amazon. There are sort of like posters, anatomy posters that you could find. And also, if you do not find them, then yes, by all means, browse through Google Images. There is tons and tons of muscle structures. Another thing I would advise is learn the different muscles: gastrocnemius, sternocleidomastoid, deltoids, trapezius, pectoral muscles. All the muscles that if you learn them, then you know how the fibers are, you know which direction they're going. You could also use this to further enhance the treatment protocol when you are delivering to your clients. So the functions of the muscles, the wide variety of muscles in the body collectively fulfill a range of essential and useful functions. So protection, muscles protect against trauma and direct injury to our internal organs. Muscles support our organs and bones through the contraction and relaxation. It gives us the ability to sit, stand, twist, bend, and hold positions. Movement energy. This is created by the contraction and relaxation of muscles and muscles groups. When our muscles contract, the action produces heat in the body. So types of muscles. We've got different types of muscles as well. There are 2 types of muscles in the body which are named for their method of functioning. So you got the voluntary muscle. This is the voluntary muscles are muscles that can be used or not used by a person. Skeletal muscle is a good example of voluntary muscle because it enables us to move our limbs whenever we choose. So if I was to move this arm, for example, I'm actually voluntarily doing this because, I'm voluntarily telling my mind, my brain to do that. So that's voluntary. Involuntary is muscles are muscles that we do not have conscious control over. The heart is a good example of involuntary muscle beating without direct control. So we have our heart muscle, which is pumping all the time for us, and we have no control over that. Plus, there are other muscles like your intestines, the muscles around that, which is actually digesting food, for example. And we have no clue about it. So those are involuntary muscles. It functions by itself. Types of muscle tissues. So there are 3 different types of muscle tissues, and they all have the ability to contract or relax to perform functions like movement. So you got the skeletal muscles, represents up to 40% of the body's weight of an adult. Skeletal muscle is striated with strip-like markings and consists of long muscle fibers, each of which is a multi-core cell. When the muscles contract, the individual strands or fibers slide over each other, shortening the muscle length. This is called the method of sliding filaments. So look into muscles, muscle diagrams. You should look into what sliding filament is. So sliding filament is the structure, how it is. So if you type in SLIDING space filament, FILAMENT, on your Google search, you will find what sliding filaments are in muscles. Nervous system controls contraction of the skeletal muscle, and many contractions are automatic, but we have the ability to control the skeletal muscle directly. And that's the good thing about it, because we can command the skeletal system to do things, whenever we're walking, moving. So that is the way it functions. So the heart muscle is a cardiac muscle, okay? It constitutes the heart's wall and is known as the myocardium. So that is the scientific name for the heart, myocardium. It is also a striated muscle, like the skeletal muscle, and it contracts through the method of sliding filament. It is attached to itself rather than to the bone, unlike the skeletal muscle. Then we have smooth muscle as well. So most of the internal organs are smooth muscle. It is found in the bladder of the urine, the bladder of the gall, arteries, veins, and digestive tract. The hormones and the nervous system control smooth muscle. We can't control smooth muscle consciously. Okay, so that's the difference. Muscular movements of the bones. So skeletal muscles create bones, and that's body parts. In movement by contracting or pulling on them, muscles are unable to push. A tough connective tissue called the tendon attaches each skeletal muscles to the bone. The muscle and tendon movement pulls the bone to make it act as a lever. How muscles work. So if we look into this part, we will see that they need a continuous supply of oxygen for our muscles to work efficiently, and they also need fuel. The fuel they need is called glucose, and is transported through the bloodstream to the muscles. This process is referred to as oxidation of breathing. So when we do that, when we breathe, oxidation is happening. Is known as aerobic when this process involves oxygen, and it is an efficient way of producing energy. The result is anaerobic respiration, when insufficient oxygen reaches the muscles, as can happen during sudden physical exercise bouts or severe exercise. Oxygen depth exists in anaerobic respiration. This means that glucose is broken down in the process without oxygen, resulting in glucose releasing only a portion of its energy. The muscle tissue remains a waste product called lactic acid. The presence of lactic acid will cause muscle fatigue or cramping if oxygen does not reach the muscles. No wonder why people, when they work out, they get this kind of lactic buildup, because not a lot of oxygen is going there. So my advice would be, to always make sure that you stretch and, you keep yourself supple, drink water, breathe properly, to avoid such situations. So, but it does happen, and if there is a lactic buildup, fire cupping is really great for those kind of athletes who are suffering from that. So if you are dealing with people who are going to the gym, dealing with sports athletes, you should always advise them that they should do traditional Chinese medicine fire cupping method for promoting deep relaxation in those muscle areas. So furthermore, if we look into the principal actions of the muscles, below are some of the common terms used to describe muscles and muscular movement. So I'm going to give you this booklet, guys. On page 7, you could look into what the muscles do. So flexors, so decreases the angle at a joint. Extensors, increases the angles at a joint. Abductor, moves bones away from the midline of the body. Adductor, moves bones closer to the midline of the body. Then you have levator, produces an upward movement. So these things are talking about how muscles work, how muscles function, moving from an angle, coming back at an angle, extensors, flexors, when you're twisting your hand, deltoid, what your, how that happens. So all of these functionalities are describing the how muscles work. So if you are not familiar with these words, it's best you put in flexor muscles, and then put on YouTube, for example, or other platforms which will demonstrate to you live, how it functions. So you are quite clear of how it works. So I would suggest that you combine our therapy book with secondary resources, because you would get a deeper understanding of it. And that is what we have done when we went through training. If it was a life-to-life session, then yes, then we could show you that. But there's so much you could do on a video. So it's best you go through those, spend some time. I mean, the more you are curious to learn about these things, it will become much more clear to you. Factors which affect muscle tissue. So posture. So poor posture can cause muscle strain that has to strain in order to maintain balance. Correct balance is maintained by constantly tensing and relaxing muscles and muscle groups to help the body stay upright and safe. That is one of the things what people struggle with when they have poor posture. It kind of causes muscle strain. So when we do sort of things like deep tissue sports massage, for example, for our clients, we find that because of due to the poor posture they had, they got more sort of knots around the areas that they were having poor posture for. So it's always important that you always tell your clients to keep themselves upright. Imagine you got a string going from your head attached to the ceiling, so you'd be kind of like walking, sort of like a puppet, for example. That's the analogy I could give you. In that way you can always make sure that you're walking straight, but just make it look natural. You don't want to look like you're just a proper puppet walking down the road, but that is the analogy to use. Keep your back straight and you're walking down, and it's a good way to maintain your posture. So another thing is drugs, which affects muscle tissue. So anesthetics and relaxing muscles enable relaxation of the tissue. Anti-inflammatory drugs can cure damaged tissue, and hormones can accelerate muscle tissue growth. Psychological mental stress can cause tension in physiology, the muscular. So when you are psychologically depressed, you have anxiety issues, depression. We all do. We all go through phases of life that affects us, which is part of life. But if that's the case, then definitely fire cupping method is a great way to relax your clients when they are suffering from stress. So external, to touch. Regular fire cupping can maintain healthy muscle tissue by improving circulation and boosting the lymphatic system. It helps tone the muscles and eliminate lactic acid. So reflex, heat and cold. In response to any external forces or direct pain, muscle will contract involuntarily. In a cold environment, muscle tissue contracts, tensions up. Alternatively, in response to warm or hot climates or direct heat or heat application, it can relax. So that's something that will also affect people. So if during those periods, if it's a cold season, you should also use it as a marketing tool, or during the hot seasons as well. Just to advise people that during those times you may need to do some of these therapies in order to relax you. Um, so another thing is how to affect muscle tissue is through using electricity. It is possible to use electric current to stimulate muscle tissue movement. Infrared rays are capable of penetrating and relaxing muscle tissue and improving circulation. Moderate swimming is good exercise for all muscle because it supports the body's weights and eliminates stress and strain. Warm water relaxes tissues as in a warm bath, while cold as in a cold shower stimulates tissue, stimulates the cold. So what we are learning here is that electrical rays, infrared rays could help to relax the muscles. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but I have seen in some clinics, they use infrared lights when they're doing treatment. So you can easily buy an infrared bulb for treatments from Amazon, eBay and stuff. They are quite good. It's very effective when you're using it, to do cupping and stuff. Because it relaxes the muscles. And then on top of that, if you like to swim, some people who have issues with ligaments and stuff, it's better if you go for swimming, because in that way you would be able to use the advantage of being in the water and not hurting your cartilages and your joints and stuff. On page 9 we just got a rough diagram of how all the sort of the muscles are and the names. So my advice would be for you guys to get a larger picture or a colored image on your device or your computer. Learn these words as mentioned earlier. Okay then, so that's the skeletal and the muscular part covered. Next part we'll be looking into the circulatory system, so see you there.